It's been a long time coming, but finally I've taken the leap into making a YouTube channel. I have really big plans in the works with some really interesting, fun and educational videos for all of you. With this being the first video on my channel, I didn't want to make it just about any random video talking about a single cool item or a neat gun. I really wanted to go and show the depths and the detail that I'm willing to bring to this channel to give you guys really awesome content. And nothing to me shows that more than an iconic, dedicated loadout review with some really rare and unique items like I've got in front of me. There are so many iconic references that I could have chosen from, but one that has both so much opportunity to be eye-catching as well as usable for airsoft is this, of the 45th VDV Detached Reconnesence Brigade from the turn of the century, Y2K. After 9 months of direct battle, the Mujahideen threat in Chechnya was reduced down to an anti-insurgency operation, with Russian troops primarily dealing with bomb threats and small-scale skirmishes in the region. During this time, in the winter of 2000, the 45th VDV troops underwent a training operation in the canyons and mountains in the region. This involved transporting troops and BTR through the canyons with potentially submerged mines as issues. There are so many different setups here with a mix of both incredibly rare and much more reasonable to find items, so it will allow you to create a kit based on this photo set that is accurate and good quality, whether you've got a budget of £150, £200 or a budget of £500 plus. And it will be usable for both skirmishes and longer milsim events, weekend events and more throughout the year. I really like this loadout and there are so many options to change it and work it up to suit you. If you wish to make the loadouts that I discussed today, or just wish to see the reference photos that I talk about here in higher detail, then check the description of this video for a link to my Facebook page. There'll be an album added up alongside this video which has all of the references that I post in as high detail as I can find them, and there I'm also always happy to talk questions and chat with you in my messenger about anything kit related, be it this one or other. Starting with the base, and there are a handful of different uniforms seen in the operators in these videos which you can kind of see around me here on the screen. The easiest of these to find is the VSR 93 Army issued M88 uniform in VSR, Barvicker or periwinkle camo, whatever you'd like to call it, it has several names. This was the standard uniform of the Russian Armed Forces from its introduction in 1993 until it was replaced by the VSR 98 Flora camo in the same cut in 1998. Though it had been officially replaced by this time, take-up did take some time in the Russian Armed Forces, with the army being so large, and so there were still many VSR uniforms in this cut in use going into the 2000s in VDV troops, regular armed infantry, MVD, and there is even some photos of them being used with the FSB forces in the Beslan school siege in 2004. The 45th ORP had a lot more flexibility than the usual army branch units, allowing for them to specialise in their gear and use contract items shared with both the MVD Spetsnaz units and continue the use of actually removed out of service items like this VSR camo, which in the right environment was really flexible and really useful camouflage, and you can see the guys around me using it to great effect in the photos that I'm sharing at the minute. A slightly rarer option today, but my preferred for comfort, is the Gorka 1 mountain suit that I'll be using in most of the footage you see in this video. The Gorka 1 was a direct predecessor to the Soviet-made mountain suits, which were primarily consumer use for hiking. This was the first made solely for military use in the 90s. Several companies produced their own Gorka suits to a very similar pattern, or basically the same pattern, including Splav and Anna, well into the 2000s. The earlier models of these, like I said, were exact copies of the Soviet ones, identified by their lack of any sleeving pockets. These were famously seen in use with the GRU units in Dagestan in 1998 and 99, at the very start of the Second Chechen War. And they were again seen here with the 45th ORP in large quantities, as shown in the photos on screen. The one I have here is a slightly later production from Anna, who were the only company to continue production of these early Gorka suits well into the 2000s and even into the 2010s for various MVD contracts. The later models like mine do have the sleeve pockets, but as this one here came from a Vitiaz unit, I'm kind of loath to remove the pockets for accuracy on this specific loadout when I'll be using a coat over it anyway. These suits are quite rare nowadays, and the older 90s ones are even harder to find. If you want to find yourself one, then it's definitely worth keeping an eye on Facebook and on the forums and collector groups, and be prepared to have funds ready if you want to grab yourself a rare find like this. I did actually take a look at the ANA website the other day, as they have recently stopped producing Gorkas but still have some stock, and if you are really lucky and really want to get one, there's a handful, kind of 5 or 10 suits in various sizes available right now if people do want to grab them before they really go. With our base uniform sorted, we now need somewhere to store all of our magazines and other operational equipment. There are 2 identifiable vests in this photo set, which can be seen on the photos on screen. Both of these are produced by Splav, and at the time of this they were only really made for contract use. Supplied to 45th VDV, several GRU units, as well as the majority of the MVD branch units in Spetsnaz as well. At this point, the only camo available for these was the Les one, which I'm wearing here. This is similar to US Woodland, and all of these vests were later made in US Woodland as well, which did sometimes get called Les down the line to give a little bit more confusion. But these ones are identifiable as having a slightly darker, more browner colour palette, I'd say. And the shapes on them as print as well are a little bit larger than the standard M81 Woodland ones. Unfortunately, it's now quite uncommon to find Les because it was taken out of production around 2006 and hasn't been made since. So you really only have about a 6 or 7 year period where items were made in this camo, and for the first 3 of those at least, it was contract only gear. The first of the rigs that I want to talk about, and probably the easiest to find today, is the M23 Pioneer, which I'm wearing here. This is a chest rig, unlike the others in the M line by Splav, which are majority tactical vests. I'm definitely not a fan of chest rigs personally, but this one holds a constant place in my collection, both for its rarity and just for its sheer usability. The M23 is an incredibly comfortable to wear item, with a lot of adjustability in the straps and very wide, comfortable, well padded straps as well for vests of the time. It also surpasses pretty much any other vest I can think of, including fully loaded out tack vests, for the sheer amount of pouches and places to store things on such a small chest rig. It actually includes holders for knives, torches, several spaces for rock flares, a built-in radio pouch, 8 magazines on the front, a document flap, and pouches on the side which are large enough for pretty much any type of Russian grenade, as well as being big enough to fit a bandage and a tourniquet in each one. There's plenty of space in this vest, and really, even on a milsim, I've never been able to fill it up completely and make use of absolutely every pocket on this. One of the Pioneer's sister vests is this, the M22 Tarzan. This is also seen prominently in the photo set, as you can see in the photos here. There were 2 variants of the M22 made, with the original M22 that can be seen in the photos, and the one I own and am wearing known as the M22C or S, depending on if you translate the Cyrillic. The C or S denotes a summer variant, having the fabric shoulders which would normally be padded and carry on with the same Les camo pattern all the way up the shoulders and around the back, swapped for the mesh ones that you can see here. Now, they maybe get rid of the padding a little bit, and if you are running a very heavily loaded vest, say with real steel magazines, then I can imagine that it will pull on your shoulders a little bit more and add a bit more strain, but there's definitely a counteraction to that when you're running about in the heat, and it really helps regulate through the top of your body a bit better. To me, the M22 is a really brilliant vest, and of all the Tarzan family, it's probably the best for airsoft that I can think of, mainly down to the pouch layout on the front, just being really usable and workable. It has 8 magazine pouches, or space for 8 magazines on the front, 2 large chest pouches which can be used for speed loaders, dead rags, medical equipment and other items, 4 small frag pouches with 2 on either side. These can be used to fit airsoft grenades, as well as small radios like Baofangs and compasses and other stuff you may need for a milsim. And there is also space for 4 ROP 30 flares along the vest, which Not everyone runs. I like to add them in just for that little bit of realism. I've seen other people run, things like sweet packets in them. If you need that little bit of treat while you're out and about. I think a really cool thing with this vest that I actually have seen in this photo set, and I've never seen before, is this guy here who has actually cut holes in the top of his chest pouches so that he can stick the fuses from his grenades through them and carry more grenades. It's not something that I do to a vest like this because they are quite rare nowadays, and as a collector I don't really want to mess about with it, but I really like the ingenuity that some of these guys had when they were out and about, just modifying the kit so it worked for them. If you are going to recreate this kit for airsoft, then I would definitely recommend using either of these vests. They're a pleasure to use, and they're two of my most highly recommended vests to new players looking to do Russian kits. Tarzans and Pioneers, regardless of the camo and the age, are just really, really sturdy vests. They're usable, they've got so many applications. You can use them from early 2000s MVD, well into the late noughties, and there's even some that have been seen in photo sets well into the 2010s with various units. Lastly, armour. As this is a recon loadout that I'm doing, I can't really see any armour worn in any of the photos here, which actually really helps us when recreating this loadout and using it to airsoft no end in my mind. It really helps reduce the cost of the kit and the cumbersomeness of it. You get a lot more mobility without wearing vests, and a lot of the older early 2000s and late 90s vests can be either very bulky or they really need that added layer of padding, Kevlar or plate to properly give them the shape and make them look correct when you're wearing them. So to me, that's not really an issue, not having armour. It really helps use this kit for a longer time, especially when you're doing something like a weekend meal sim where you're going to be out and at it for 24 hours at least. You don't need that extra armour weighing you down at all. So with the base gear sorted, we can now move on to adding accessories and really fleshing this gear set out to make it look complete. And this starts with the ever iconic and ubiquitous Chachenko watch cap. Two colour variants are seen here, including the now rare early Flora model and 7 different styles of black Chachenko beanie. These early Flora models can be identified one of 2 ways to later ones, with some having a horizontal print rather than a vertical one, and all of them having a somewhat more blue or yellow hue to what would be green fabrics in later prints. For availability and cost though, with these being quite rare, I've opted for the black Chachenko. However, I'm definitely going to try and pick up an early noughties Flora on when I find one for sale. There's several different ways to wear these beanies, and you can see them worn in a few of these photos in slightly different methods, but I think the most popular one from this photo set and more for this time period is having it like this with the top part rolled up above the ears. It kind of really doesn't stop your ears getting cold at all, especially in the Russian winters, but it still traps the majority of heat from escaping your head, and it doesn't muffle your hearing either, especially when wearing a headset. Several guys in this photo set are also wearing a Kasinka bandage like I've got on here. These were originally designed as slings, but many guys took to wearing them as either neckerchiefs or bandanas. I've opted to use mine as a neckerchief. It gives a bit of added throat protection for airsoft, and also it can kind of double up as a face covering if needed, which is kind of really useful, I think, especially now with the whole coronavirus going on. It just helps give that added layer of protection both to your face, your teeth when playing airsoft, and for the virus as well. Moving on to footwear, and there are actually very few photos showing the actual boots worn by these guys in the set. And to be honest, with the quality of footwear available at this time, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, which really allows you to wear whatever high quality boots you find comfortable enough to wear for a day or even for a weekend. Personally, I choose either my Grafter Assault boots, which are British made, or Bitech Cobras in the summer for the warmer months. To allow us to hide these inaccurate boots, it can be seen that many of these soldiers are wearing one of 2 types of oversuits as waders or galoshes. The long full trousers that you can see by this handsome gent are taken from the Soviet L1 chemical oversuit. These suits were originally created as MBC items but saw preferred use by troops in wet conditions, as they were much better quality than most of the specialist waterproof materials available at the time, which really couldn't deal with full submersion. My preference, however, owed to them being cheaper, more readily available as a separate item, and smaller to carry are these OZK overboots. These are also NBC items, and we're seeing used by the Chernobyl liquidators actually, when paired with the matching OZK overcoat and I believe gloves too. A single piece hooded jacket was the cloak, or the coat, that went to below the knee, and knowing someone that owns one of these suits, I can highly recommend just buying the boots if you're able to. The coat is sweltering and can easily cause heat stroke on even a mild day. Wearing these boots for an hour or two today while doing the video footage that you'll see throughout here, even that, my Gorka bottoms were completely sweated through. The boots are full coverage and they slip over your shoes, having a toughened rubber oversole on them, which is actually pretty grippy. They're pulled up to just around knee height, and the straps are tied around the leg at 3 points with this bit of webbing going up to a belt or something that you're wearing to keep them held up and keep them at the right length. They're great when going through puddles and streams and playing airsoft. I find that they've actually given me the advantage a couple of times because I just don't care about going through deep puddles when wearing them, but they have the disadvantage of being incredibly sweaty. Worn over these in a couple of photos, as you can see on these guys, for additional protection are some different types of knee pads. But the ones most easily available are the Hatch KP250 knee pads, which were created in the 90s originally. They're very comfy and they're used by a lot of Russian units. The later models had quick detach on the sides as well as 8 rivets, but these earlier types have 6 grommets or rivets on the front and they aren't quick detachable. These ones aren't actually real Hatch because it is actually really difficult nowadays to find anything but the black ones in a genuine Hatch. These are Chinese-made Rothko knee pads, which I recently picked up if you've seen my Instagram pages, and these are actually really genuine article quality. I've worn them a couple of times so far. They're really well padded and they look like for like to the original Hatch ones, if you can see in this photo from my Instagram as well. And these are commonly sold throughout the US and throughout China as well through eBay and other places. Gloves to me are always one of those accessories that can really make a kit look right or wrong, but thankfully it doesn't take a lot of money sometimes to get the right look for gloves. With many of these late 90s and early 2000s kits, just using generic off-the-shelf leather gloves, either padded ones like this, or you do see some ones that are unpadded, so open back kind of weightlifting leather gloves as well. To me, there isn't really a need to hunt out genuine vintage or even Russian gloves, as you can find a lot of these designs, like the ones I'm wearing here, on eBay nowadays, exactly the same as they used to be. In fact, a lot of the operators seen here aren't even wearing gloves in the photos, but I personally like the protection that they offer, especially when playing airsoft. I've got a simple leather padded pair from eBay. These are literally identical to ones seen on this soldier in the photo set, and the same shape of glove can be seen throughout the 2000s on MVD units and other branches. They are definitely worth picking up. You can get a pair for about £10–15 and they will suit you for so many different loadouts. As I've already somewhat discussed, waterproof clothing in this time period of Russia was really quite poor, and many of the membrane suits that were available to the guys in the army were not that good quality, and the coatings on them had a tendency to flake and degrade over time, meaning really not many have survived in usable condition until today, unless they've been in the hands of very careful collectors since the late 90s or early 2000s. This degradation of items has also made them more likely to be thrown away by units rather than sold onto the surplus market as well. There are several photos of the soldiers here wearing raincoats that you can see to my side, and I do believe some of them to be this very early 2000s Splav one that I actually own myself. Unfortunately, the label has been cut off by whoever used this in service, so I don't know actually the year of make or the name of this specific model, but it's a general shape of cuff jacket matches, as well as the use of the Les camo and the elasticated cuff seam on it, which match some of the reference photos. It can be really difficult to find suitable wet weather gear that looks right with your early 2000s kits and your MVD kits, and depending on your budget, one place that I would really consider looking at is actually the cheaper end. VVZ rain suits are really small, really compact, and they can be used for many kits, having been seen from the early 2000s even in use by both Russian forces and the Chechen rebels as well, actually. They're a little bit boil in the bag, but you get what you pay for, with them still being produced exactly the same way nowadays and costing only around £35 to £40 for a set. There are a few shots that do show backpacks in use here on several of the soldiers, which you can see on the screen at the minute. All of these do look to be the same model, which is this Splav Desantnik or Paratrooper backpack. The Desantnik is a 45 litre pack that is made up of one large full body pouch which zips all the way around 3 sides. You have 2 smaller pouches, one on each side, that zip from top to bottom. A small pouch on the front, which is actually just the right size to fit a VDV kettle in. Mine's again in a nice little Splav pouch. And a little slide down the back of this to fit a shovel as well. These were made on contract in the early 2000s for the 45th, as well as some MVD units in this early Les camo. This particular one is actually a slightly earlier model from the late 90s that uses a Les variant known as Military Les, which is a slightly darker colour than the standard stuff produced in the 2000s by Splav. I love this pack. I use it regularly for milsims. It has a sewn-in semi-rigid frame into the back of it and a storable waist strap, which I generally don't use because I'm wearing it over a vest, but it can be useful when rucking long distances. This is actually a used item that I own, and it came from Vvedensky Spetsnaz unit, like my Gorka 1. And one thing I find really cool about this is, if you can see, it actually has the name of one of the sergeants written on the back of it, and some of his numbers and details as well. Unfortunately, I've just sold the last one of these that I had available. I did have several for sale, but they do pop up in collector's circles every few months, so it shouldn't be that hard to get one for yourself if you keep an eye out. They're a really great pack to use. One of the truly rare pieces that I've managed to borrow from a friend for taking this loadout to that next level is this little beauty, which is the R392 Soviet radio. These were first made in the late 80s and have seen use for quite some time since with the Russian troops. Unfortunately, this one I have doesn't have the correct headset as far as I know, and instead it uses the cross-compatible one from this radio's predecessor, the R126. The headset is connected up and has quite a bulky inline push-to-talk on both models, but they're pretty much identical in design, bar an additional overhead strap that the later 392 one has for additional comfort. This headset actually uses a method of bone conduction to pick up, with it being rested on the jaw here or on the cheekbone on another model. And that is meant to improve its quality in audio over a standard microphone, especially with, as you can imagine, the 80s ones that they had at the time. This radio actually offers 6 frequencies, which are shown underneath this cap. And unfortunately, it doesn't have much use as a communication device nowadays, at least in the UK. These frequencies range between the 40 megahertz to 50 megahertz band, which is far too low for any of your VHF or UHF kind of Baofeng radios to pick up, and actually are technically illegal to transmit on in the UK unless you have a maritime license. I probably wouldn't suggest finding one of these for your airsoft kit. They won't really have any use, and they've actually got a decent bit of weight to them for the size, with them being full metal. But if you're a collector of militaria or you're doing reenactment events, then one of these really will help escalate that loadout, either Afghanistan or anything up to kind of the mid-2000s. It's a really great piece of kit, and the Soviet radios, while primitive, are really cool bits to look at. Now that we've got all the wearables sorted for the kit, the final thing to add on is our weapon or weapons of choice. Starting with sidearms, there's actually only one photo I can see here of a sidearm in use with these guys, which I believe may be a Stechkin APS like mine here. But as it's holstered and I cannot determine the make or model of the holster from the quality of the photo, I've chosen to leave a sidearm off to match the majority of the photos here and just use a primary rifle. As for rifles, we actually have quite a range to choose from, which is another reason why I wanted to do this loadout for you guys straight away. From the photos that are showing around me now, you can see not only the standard AK-74M in use, but also AKMS rifles, both with and without a PBS-1 suppressor, VSS Vintores, my personal favourite, the AS Val, as well as the PKM being used in several of them as well. The AS-Val seen here in these two photos being used by the same gentleman is fitted with the slightly later black polymer furniture like I have on mine, rather than the brownish plum that you can also get. A standard canvas sling is fitted along with a PSO-1 scope with eyepiece. The PSO-1 scope was actually originally produced for the 7.62 SVD. There is a much rarer 9x39 variant that was made later on, called the PSO-12M2-1. It has a different reticle and distance measure, but it is externally the same, and I don't believe that these were available in the year 2000. They came on later in the noughties. There are many options for these rifles when it comes to airsoft. You can go for, basic Cymer 40C or 48M for our AK models, ranging in at about £150 from places like Taiwan Gun, all the way up to kind of the £500 range for something like my STO 9x39, Russian-made AS-Val replica, or the A&K PKM, which you can see flashing across the screen now, another brilliant gun that I own. I'll do a video later next year covering some of the different Russian small arms that are available for airsoft and which ones I would actually consider purchasing or avoiding, so keep a lookout for that. Much closer to home though, my next video coming out will actually be a detailed breakdown and a detailed history of all the different rifles in the 9x39 family, including the AS-Val, the VSS Vintores, and even talking about the Groza and other more unique and exotic weapons in the family as well. So look out for that. The footage that ends this video is accompanied by a Russian song by the band Lube. This song is Combat, and it was actually featured on their album called Guys of Our Regiment, whose album cover, actually, you can see here, includes one of the reference photos from this picture set. I don't actually know if any of the guys in Lube were part of the 45th or if they just chose this photo, but it is a really, really neat little thing that I found. I've been Rusforlife, and this has been my year 2000 45th ORP impression kit. I hope you've really enjoyed this breakdown. I really had fun making it, and I hope that you've been inspired to put one together yourself, be it this kit or another. I'd really like to thank my friends Bryn and Matt for loaning me their PSO-1 and R392 radios for the video. The guys on the Rusforlife Discord for helping me figure out some of the details and in the references, and just for you guys really for following me and making this possible and making me want to make this channel. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more content, and ring the bell to get notified when my next one goes up. I've currently got videos planned between now and June 2022, 2023 even, that are going to be hopefully once a fortnight other than kind of Christmas and stuff. And I've got a lot more content to come after that that's just trickling through my brain at the minute. So just please keep an eye out, and I will be producing as much as I can on here over the coming months. If you want to see more behind the scenes stuff, as well as chat to me and other enthusiasts, then make sure to follow my Facebook and Instagram pages. Both of those are linked down below in the description. You can also join the Rusforlife Discord, which is linked down there, where there's several other guys. I think we've got about 100, but an active group of about 30, who are often talking about kits they've bought, asking questions, and we're very happy to have new guys who have never touched a Russian kit before in their life join us as well. As always, I'm also happy to source and help you find any kit parts that you're interested in. I will do my best to either purchase it myself and help you get it, or to direct you to another seller who I trust and who I know in the community can help you get those items. The links for everything is down in the video description. I really have enjoyed making this video, so I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it too. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.
Третьи сутки в пути, ветер, камни, дожди. Все вперед и вперед, рота прет, наша прет.